my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm gonna cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. If you're new to The Birth Hour, you may not know that we have an online childbirth course that is evidence-based. It includes 12 modules that take you from your final weeks of pregnancy through obviously preparing for birth and then postpartum and feeding your baby as well. And with enrollment in that course, which is called Know Your Options, you'll get free access to our other course called Beyond the First Latch, where we talk all about pumping, feeding baby, storing milk, going back to paid work if that's part of your plan, all of those things as well. Okay, so if you go to thebirthhour.com/course, you can see everything laid out in the course, module by module, as well as an FAQ section, which will hopefully answer some of your questions if you have any, things like how to get it covered by an FSA account and things like that. It also talks about the bonuses that come with the course, including bi-monthly Zoom calls and access to our private Facebook group. So again, that's thebirthhour.com/course. And you can use the coupon code 100OFF for $100 off enrollment as a podcast listener. We would also love to welcome you into our listener supporter group via Patreon. That's at patreon.com/birthhour. And by becoming a Patreon supporter, you get access to all of our archived episodes. This podcast launched in 2015, so we have over 800 episodes in the archives that are not in the main podcast feed. So you can get your fill of birth stories. And you'll also get access to our private Facebook group for Patreon members, which is a great place to honestly just to search the past posts to get answers to questions, but then of course to ask new questions, find community. It's a really, really great supportive group of people. So I highly recommend joining that. We would love to have you there. We also do monthly Zoom calls with our Patreon supporters, and you get an opportunity to enter your birth story via a different submission form than everyone else uses, and we choose 2 Patreon members each month to share their birth stories. So that is again at patreon.com/birthhour. Today's birth story guest is Carolyn, and she has 3 birth stories to share. Her first was an unmedicated hospital birth. Her second was a cesarean birth due to a breech baby. And then she had a VBAC with her twins, and it was actually a home birth. So she talks about having co-care with a midwife as well as an OBGYN and what that was like, and then how her birth unfolded, and then compares her different postpartum experiences as well. Today's episode is sponsored by Cozy Earth. It's a new year, and while many of us, myself included, are resetting our homes, I know that many of my listeners are nesting as you prepare for baby's arrival as well. I've swapped my sheets out for Cozy Earth, and most recently I am loving their Baja bedding set. If you've never felt Cozy Earth sheets, you're missing out. They are truly the softest sheets I've ever owned, and they stay cool, which is a must for postpartum in my opinion. You'll spend so much time in your bed with a new baby that it's worth investing in sheets that will make you feel like you're in a luxury resort every day. Cozy Earth also offers a 100-night sleep trial, so you can try them out, and if you don't love them, you can return them hassle-free, but trust me, you won't want to. They also offer a 10-year warranty because once you feel this level of comfort, you'll want it to last a decade. Start the new year off right and give you and your home the luxury you deserve. Head to CozyEarth.com and use my code BIRTHHOUR for up to 20% off. And if you get a post-purchase survey, be sure to mention you heard about Cozy Earth right here on The Birth Hour. Give yourself the gift of comfort that lasts beyond the holidays and carries into a cozy new year. Today's episode is brought to you by Air Doctor. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors, but did you know that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? You can breathe easy with Air Doctor, the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens, viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. Air Doctor was voted Best Air Purifier by Newsweek, so it's no surprise that 98% of Air Doctor customers agree their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. Unlike other purifiers, Air Doctor captures invisible particles 100 times smaller than standard HEPA filters. We have air purifiers in our bedroom as well as the kids' bedrooms, and everyone has been sleeping better. I love how quiet the Air Doctor is. It's like the perfect amount of white noise. I would absolutely splurge on this for a nursery for baby. Like, get the cheap crib from IKEA and put your money towards this so that your baby has clean air in their nursery. We also have one in our living room, and I've noticed a huge difference after cooking and things like that. It just really clears the room really quickly. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code BIRTHHOUR to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty, which is an $84 value for free. You can get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com, airdoctorpro.com, using the promo code BIRTHHOUR. All right, let's get to Carolyn's birth stories. Hi, Carolyn. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to get to your stories. Before we do that, can you tell listeners a little bit about you and your family?
Yeah, so I'm a mom of 4. I have a 10-year-old boy, 5-year-old boy, and then I had twins, boy and a girl, 3 months ago. They're 3 months old yesterday. So really busy.
Yeah.
We reside in St. Louis, my husband and I. And, we've moved around a lot, but we think this is home. I was a college basketball coach for a while. And so that moved us to a couple different places. And now we're settling into my stay-at-home mom role. And also, I am a new birth and postpartum doula. I got my certification last year. So that's something I've been working on, is growing my business with that.
Awesome. It's a lot going on.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're going to try to hear all 3 birth stories today. So why don't you start us off with your first pregnancy and whatever you want to share about preparing for that birth?
Yeah, for sure. So I had my first son 10 years ago, 2015, and I was not really versed on birth. I was a basketball player and a basketball coach, and that was kind of what consumed me. And being a mom was kind of like not on the radar at the moment. So, falling into that role was a little different for me, but I was excited at the same time. The most I knew about birth was that my mother had 3 almost 10-pound babies naturally. And so that was like, if anyone ever asked, that's all I really knew. And that's all I really went going into my pregnancy, just thinking like, well, if my mom can do it unmedicated, that's what I'm going to do. That was really my only plan, I guess, going into everything, was that I was not going to have a medicated birth. But other than that, I really didn't have a lot of knowledge around birth and pregnancy. Mm-hmm. So I spent a lot of that time listening to podcasts and reading and talking to people and trying to, educate myself as much as I could in those 9-10 months. And my basketball team I was working for at the time, our yoga instructor was a doula. And so she introduced me to the world of doulas, and that's really where my education grew to. Unfortunately, she wasn't available to be my doula, but she referred me to someone who was great. So I did have a doula with my first birth, and I did still go unmedicated, but I definitely wasn't as educated as I wanted to be. My pregnancy was super easy. I was young. I was in shape. So I felt like I handled the pregnancy well physically, and mentally I just was kind of focused on my job, and the pregnancy was just kind of there. I don't think I really honed in on it like I did in my other pregnancies. I was just kind of, I knew a baby was coming, and I would think about it when I got closer to the date of him coming. So, leading up to his birth, I was 37 weeks going in for an appointment that day, actually. And I woke up, I was having gas pains, I thought. And so I literally took Gas-X. I took a bath, and it's I look back on it now and I'm thinking oh, I did all the things that you would do if you're in labor, naturally, but I just didn't realize that's what I was doing. But I took a bath and I relaxed, and, the gas pains, quote unquote, did not go away. I went into my appointment that day. I did do a cervical check, and I was 3 centimeters dilated. I think I was 70% effaced, but my doctor was just you could stay this way for weeks, so we don't really want to say you're having a baby, because he was I'll get in trouble if I could do that, and which I understood, because I've now have clients who have been that way for weeks. So, but that was not the case for me. I ended up going back that night, and I had my baby the next day. But so I had my appointment. That all went well. I went and got a good meal and relaxed the rest of the day. I went back to work. I went to basketball practice that night. I was having contractions at practice, but I do have a really high pain tolerance, I've realized. But I was like in practice, like bending over, having contractions. Like all my players were like very concerned. But I was just so like nonchalant. Like I was just like, oh, it's fine. Like it's just a little cramp, and just going on with it. And I was also in grad school. So I had left practice early to go finish a paper because I'm thinking like, well, if I'm going to have this baby soon, like I should.
Oh my gosh.
I know. I was just doing a lot.
The most.
So I'm like, let me go finish this paper, eat my food, and just relax. I called my doula just to like keep her updated. And so she came over and just to check on me and see how things were going. And I also want to note I was GBS positive, so we knew I was going to have an antibiotic during labor. And so that was like something I think on the doula's mind, because I still am thinking like I'll be fine. I still have a few weeks. So one of my biggest regrets is that I heated up my food and I never ate it. And so I did not eat anything from my lunch up until I had him. And I didn't have him until the next day at like 2 p.m. So that was like a big regret of mine. I was so hungry. I think at one point I was like threatening to leave the hospital to go get food. So like they gave me crackers, I think eventually, but like I was so hungry. But my doula finally was like, I think we should just go in. And so we went around like 9 or 10 p.m. We went to the hospital and labor was fine. I mean, it was a very like standard hospital birth, just unmedicated. I did all the IVs. I did all the things. I was hooked up. I was able to take the pole and like walk around. So like that part of it was more natural. But for the most part, I didn't really question or say no to anything. I pretty much just kind of like went with what the basic things were outside of getting an epidural. And so I labored all night, the whole next day, and around like noon, they did a check and I was 9 centimeters, but like I was just kind of like not a lot happening. So I was still feeling great, not in a lot of pain. I was still walking around. And so finally the doctor was like, well, we can break your waters if you want. And I just said, yeah, like, I'm just like, if that's going to get things going, like, I'm tired, I'm hungry, like, I just want to get out of here. So we broke my waters around noon, 12:30, and my baby came around like 2:15. So that was really kind of the last little thing I needed. And again, now being in the birth ward, I realized like that was probably just a little bit holding, either I could have changed positioning or maybe that bulging bag was just holding him up. But breaking the waters did jumpstart everything. And that's when it got really intense. And I pushed for probably an hour and he was out. I had the fetal ejection reflex really strong, and I've had that with my other pregnancies too, and that was something I think helped with the pushing, and I fought against it a little bit because I was just like tired, but I definitely, like, once I kind of like relaxed myself and let it happen, it was a pretty easy labor and delivery there. So yeah, I mean, he came, he was healthy, 7 pounds. Yeah, really no complaints with the birth. I think, there's things I would have done differently looking back now that I'm educated, but I think for where I was and the goals I had, I pretty much accomplished those, and everything was great recovery-wise as well with that birth.
Okay. All right. So I know things went a little differently with your second. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So then 2020 was when I had my second baby. We all know that year. When my husband and I decided to get pregnant, I was on birth control. I had an IUD in since my last pregnancy. So I was worried, about getting pregnant, but I think within like 2 cycles we were pregnant. So that was something that helped like ease a lot of stress, that I didn't have an issue getting pregnant. And then the pregnancy again was very easy. I was still coaching at the time and active, so I'm sure that helped. But I just felt really good. I didn't have any nausea. I don't really like to talk about my pregnancies a lot to my clients because they were so easy. But, I just kind of went through it. The difference was I just was super educated and very involved in like my plan and like what I wanted. And I had the same OB, so he was on board with everything. He kind of knew he knew what to expect with me. Like I'd be very low key and calm and unmedicated. And so that was the plan going in. I had my doula that I wanted the first time she was available. So I was super excited to work with her and just to have this dream birth that I thought of. We were in a small town in Kansas, so they didn't have water as an option. You could labor in water, but you couldn't have the baby in the water. So I was able to do that with my first. So I was hoping to use water again. But other than that, like I was just really excited to have just like a really peaceful and empowered and more involved birth, like being able to say like, well, no, I'm good on that test. There were some newborn screenings that I changed my mind about. And so just some things like that I was more educated on going into that birth. But around 30 weeks, I believe, we found out that baby was Breech. And this is also like around the time like everything was shutting down. My husband wasn't allowed to come to appointments anymore. And so I found that out actually by myself. I was in an ultrasound by myself. And I just remember the tech like looking at the screen and like, I'm obviously not an ultrasound tech, but there's some things like I've noticed, I can see, I can recognize. And so like I did notice something different, and it was the cord wrapped around the baby. And so she kind of like got really quiet and then was like, oh, I'm going to go talk to the doctor. And it was just like this ominous thing. And I was just kind of like, okay, like someone tell me something. And so they came back and told me that baby was Breech and the cord was wrapped around his neck. And so it was just scary for me because I didn't know what that meant. My husband wasn't there, and I was just trying to like process this information. And so that was unfortunate to have to do that by myself. But, we talked about it. They said things could change. You just never know. And so we were just kind of hopeful that it would. My doula gave me everything under the sun to do to get baby to flip. I did acupuncture. I was chiropractor. I did moxibustion. I, basically spent the last 10 weeks upside down in my pregnancy. I just tried all the things to get him to turn. And I was very aware of like where he was. I felt him a lot and with my hands. So I knew he had not flipped. But I was just hopeful that like last minute, maybe he would. But I guess if the cord was impeding him, maybe that was a reason why he didn't. But ultimately, we went in for the C-section, and they did one more ultrasound before they took me back, and he was still Breech, which I could feel his head like in my rib cage, so I knew. But they didn't try to do an ECV to turn the baby because of the cord, and so we kind of had to just go with that. Ultimately, I wanted to do what was best for the baby. Looking back, I think I might have tried more things. Being in St. Louis now, in a bigger city, there's a lot of people who will deliver Breech babies. So just like looking into more options, but where we were at the time, we just didn't have that. And, for me, I never wanted to have a C-section, but, I was okay if that was what was best for the baby. The thing I do regret is like not researching C-sections more, especially the recovery. I didn't know many people that have had C-sections, and no one really told me about the recovery. And so that was really, really tough for me. Baby was healthy. He latched great, but just physically that recovery was really tough for me. And it was funny because it wasn't even the C-section scar. They put like a tape over top of the scar when they sutured it up, and that tape, it irritated my skin, and I ended up having like this huge wound right next to the C-section scar. So that was like really tough for me because I'm like, this isn't even from the C-section.
Yeah.
This is probably just from like dressings that needed to be removed before they were or something. I don't know. It was just, that was really tough for me because that was very painful.
Mm-hmm.
And then with it being COVID, we couldn't leave the hospital. So I was just in this like small room for like 3 days. I didn't realize that you didn't switch from like the hospital bed when you have a C-section. In my head, I'm thinking like, oh, eventually we'll move to this birthing suite and we'll have this huge queen bed and it'll be comfy. And no one told me that that wasn't the case. So I just remember waiting like, when are we going to move? And when are we going to move? And it was like, you're not moving. So there's just like those little things that I just am like, for sure, talk to people about and let them know. But I like wish I would have known because I just wasn't prepared for that postpartum at all. And I think the other thing that made it look a little traumatic for me was that when the op notes came out, like they didn't mention the cord being around his neck, which it could have just been left out. But for me, it just made me feel like, well, was it really there? Could they have turned him? So it just made me question a lot. Mm-hmm. But I tried to just like move past it and just let it go because it's like, it is what it is. He's here healthy. But it just really bothered me that I'm like, was the cord really there? Could they have tried to move them? And so I just had some issues with dealing with that a little bit mentally, but had to, just work through it and move on. That's kind of how my mindset is.
Yeah. Okay. So then let's get to finding out you were pregnant with twins.
Yes. So, we always knew we wanted more kids. I wanted them more than my husband. I'm like one of those people that would have like 8 kids if I could, but my husband's like, realistically, that's not what we're going to do. He's like, I already work enough. Like, let's relax. But we wanted to wait until our youngest was at least in kindergarten. And my husband's like, let's just get like a year off of daycare, like a year break financially. Let's, do that. And I'm like, okay, like we can commit to that. So I got my IUD out and I was like, I'll just do natural family planning, just to like get my body ready. And it's been 5 years again, just wanting to like be prepared, even though it didn't take me long to get pregnant the first time. I don't know why in my head I had it like, you're older now, like, you might not be able to get pregnant. And so, yeah, I don't even know if I had one full cycle and I was pregnant. So my husband was like, that did not work. And I'm like, sorry, I was not very good at that. But I actually did not realize I was pregnant at first because I had a cycle, which I thought was a cycle, but I'm assuming now it was probably just like implantation. But I was bleeding for like 10 to 12 days. And it was like really weird for me because I'm like, usually my periods are very like on it 3 to 5 days. I'm, 28-day cycle, like it's very uniform. And so I was like, this is concerning. But then I'm also like, well, I just came off birth control. Like maybe it's just my body regulating. I didn't think anything of it. And so then I was talking to my friend and she was like, well, why don't you just take a pregnancy test just to rule that out? And I'm like thinking like, that's a waste of money. Like there's no way I'm pregnant. Like it's fine. But I was like, whatever, I'll humor you. And I did it anyway. And I'll never forget. I was like, it was so not exciting at all. I think I was in my work bathroom and I FaceTimed her and I was like, let's just do this real quick. So I did the test and like immediately it popped up positive. And I was like, whoa. And like my best friend was in shock because she was just like not expecting it either. And we were both just like, what the heck? And then the line, it was a dye stealer. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's where like the test line is darker than the control or opposite, which the control is darker than the test line. So I'm like, oh, this must be a defective test. Like, yeah. I'm not pregnant. This is defective. And so I go buy another one and it did it again. And so I'm like, well, I bought it from the same store. So this whole set is defective.
Batch is bad.
Like, I'm like, it has to be this whole pallet they brought in was defective. And so I go to another store and buy more and same thing. So
you're just super pregnant.
Yeah. So now I'm Googling like, what is this? And it's, you're further along, it's twins or, but I'm not thinking it's twins in my head. I don't know why. I have a lot of twins in my family, my mom's side. So it was not too far off, but you just never think it's going to be you that has the twins.
Right.
Even though, like, honestly, I had always said I wanted them, but that was before I had 2 children. And so I go to my midwife, who I had just met with her like a month before for business purposes, just like networking and like wanting to like get to know midwives in my area. And I knew she was versed on twins. I knew she had done a lot of breech training. And so I'm like, she'd be perfect. So I called her and just like, hey, might need your services. And so I was able to go in with her and do a test. And the same thing right away popped up. And she was like, I had never seen one like this. She was like, we should probably do an ultrasound just to see. Because like, again, it's like, well, maybe you're just further along than we think. You're just like 8 weeks, 9 weeks or something. And so we went to one of those like private ultrasound places that can just get you in right away, which was nice. And so I went and did that. I brought my sister-in-law with me because I think my husband was still at work or he was at home with our other kids. I was like, I have so many kids and my husband can't even come with me to this ultrasound. And so she came with me just to see what was going on. And like, as soon as the screen turned on, I saw 2 sacs and I was just in disbelief. I just turned my head and I'm just like, let me wait till she confirms that this is what's happening. And so she immediately was like, yeah, there's definitely 2 babies. And I was just like, oh my God. It was a lot. It was a big emotional rush. And then I had to figure out how to tell my husband. And yeah, I had just told him like a few days before that I was like, yeah, I think I'm pregnant and I just need to confirm, So like he was still wrapping his head around that. And then now I had to like drop it on him. Like, actually, there's 2. And so I was just like, this is going to be fun. So I get home and I just laid the ultrasound down on his desk and he like looks at it and he like picks it up and looks again. And he's just like, okay, I know like my vision's not the best. He was like, but I'm pretty sure I see 2 babies. And I was like, yeah, there's 2 in there. And he was just like, just shock and disbelief. Like, I don't think we talked about it for a day or 2. I think we both needed to like process what was happening. But then ultimately, obviously, it's an exciting thing, bringing babies into this world. It's just the how and the logistics. He's in finance, so he was automatically like, logistically, how are we going to do this? Like, right. What does this look like? And how many jobs do I need? So I think for him, it went straight to like business. And then for me, I was just like panicked because, I was a college athlete for a long time. I have bad knees. I am older than I was. And I think I was more worried physically how I would handle the pregnancy and, what that toll would take on me more than anything. I'm like, I know how to be a mom. Like, I'll figure out having 4 kids. Like, that part I was not worried about. It was just like, how do I get them to term and make sure they're healthy was my big concern. Mm-hmm. And so luckily, like, my midwife was amazing. She was very informative and like walked me through everything. And she's so versed on twins that she was really good. Like, any questions that would come up. I had like every symptom imaginable with pregnancy. And so it was so different from my other pregnancies. I had nausea and vomiting for probably 15 weeks. And I also had a subchorionic hemorrhage, which I haven't even done all my research on like how those come about, but I bled for like 3 months, and that was pretty traumatic because I had a couple episodes of like really large blood loss and clots. And so it was really concerning for me because I'd never had that and just not knowing what was going on. But those things were fine as far as like it was just part of it. And the babies were healthy and that eventually faded. And I was able to go through the whole like second trimester without that, which was nice. And I wasn't sick anymore. But it was a very tough pregnancy. And, shout out to all the twin moms because it's just different. Yeah. Very different. My anatomy scan, I was kind of when things kind of turned for me too, because I was seeing just my home birth midwife. And then she like partnered with a hospital where I could go MFM to get my ultrasounds. And when I went for the anatomy scan around like 22 weeks, they were measuring my cervix pretty short, like concerningly short. The OB came in very panicked and like, you should be under OB care. You are not eligible for a home birth. Like, just, I need your midwife's number right now. Like, it was just very like panicked and rushed. And I was like, we didn't even have a chance to talk about it or like tell me what was going on. It was just, you need to go to the hospital. It just felt like I was in labor, I guess. Like, she made me feel like I was in labor, like in that moment. And I was kind of just like, well, I feel fine. Like, I don't know what's going on. And so, I called my midwife as soon as I left the appointment. We talked and she just said, these numbers are concerning. Like, we should check into like some OBs just to see like if we could do a co-care situation just to be sure, which I thought was great because she just wanted to make sure I was healthy. And obviously, like, I had to reach certain milestones to be eligible for a home birth anyway. And so it wasn't just like a whim thing where it's like, no matter what, I'm going to birth at home. Like, I had certain criteria to meet and was going to make sure, my babies were healthy to have them at home. And so I called around to different OBs, and I finally found a hospital system that was well-versed in twins. They deliver a lot of twins, and a lot of the OBs and the fellows were okay with breech delivery because with twins, 50% of the time, the baby B is breech. Mm-hmm. And so for me, I didn't want to go into a situation where I was going to have a C-section, a 50% chance of having a C-section. And so to know that, like, there was somewhere I could birth where I could have a breech baby for baby B. Baby A couldn't be breech, but if baby B was, they would let me deliver vaginally. So that made me feel good. And then the fact that they deliver a lot of twins, so they were really good with that. And they were open to me having co-care. I do think, in the back of their minds, they probably were thinking like, she's not going to have these babies at home, which is fine because they didn't say it out loud. But I knew for sure like they didn't want me to have my babies at home, which I don't expect the OBs to. So I wasn't like upset about that because, like I said, the care was fine. The meetings were great every time I had an appointment. And I got my ultrasounds with them. And then around like 32 weeks, they start the NSTs. And so I had to do that. It just became a lot, like appointments. That was probably like the other thing with like a twin pregnancy. It was just like, I felt like I was always at an appointment. And it was even more because I was seeing both my midwife and the OBs. And so I was like, I go see my midwife this day. And then a few days later, I was going to this appointment at the hospital. And it did open my eyes to the difference in like OB care and midwifery care, because the OB office, I was there for like 3 hours and 2 of it was usually sitting in the waiting room. And, we didn't talk a lot. They never touched me. They never measured my belly. Like it was never any kind of like personal feel to it. And then with my midwife, I felt like, we were friends. Like we hung out and we talked about the pregnancy, the birth, and she informed me on so much. So I definitely I saw the difference in the care. And while I understand people who go the OB route, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But I also think like if you are having a very low intervention birth, like midwifery care is the way to go because it's just so much more personable and you feel more involved. Like I felt like I was a part of it and things weren't happening to me, it was happening with me. And so that just like really opened my eyes to that and just something to take into my doula work to talk to my clients about as well. So I just really loved that model of care. And I was just glad that like for possibly my last pregnancy, like I was able to go through it that way and just feel a lot more informed and a part of it, of what was happening. So that was really good for me. So 32 weeks, I started my NSTs. Everything looked good. Baby A was always measuring smaller than baby B, which is normal. And in my head, I always thought like these are 2 different babies. I had die twins, so they had their own sac, their own placenta. And so I'm carrying 2 separate babies. And I'm 6'4", my husband is 5'8". And so like I could have 2 different babies for like literally 2 different size babies in there just off of genetics alone. And so I was very like aware of that. And that was another thing with like the ultrasounds. Like when they would talk about that, I was just like, I'm not worried. It was never like discordant growth where like one was way off. They were within a pound of each other. That also like twin A also had, they thought maybe a velamentous cord insertion. It wasn't confirmed, but when she was born, when they checked the placenta, the cord was a little off from where it should be. And it was a lot smaller than baby B's cord. So there was definitely a reason why she was smaller, but she was still healthy, just a little smaller than her brother. Oh, also to know, I did not know the genders of the babies the whole time.
Oh, that's fun.
My husband found out at the anatomy scan, but I like have always wanted to be surprised.
Yeah.
And I just thought like, why not? What's another surprise? Like I'm already surprised about having twins. Like this is even more fun. No one could believe I did it the whole time.
I can't believe one of you knew and one of you didn't. That's insane.
I like thought for sure he would give it up. And there were so many times where I'm like, you slipped up, you told me, but ultimately he didn't. Because whenever I thought he slipped up, I was thinking he was saying they were both boys and they weren't. So I was like, he did really good. He told his best friend just to like get it out so he wasn't like holding it, but they don't live here and I don't talk to them. So I was just like, that was a safe person to tell. And I think towards the end I got anxious and I was like, just tell me one of them. And he was like, no. I think at our baby shower, they were like starting a raffle to like try to like get him to tell the gender. But it was just really fun to have that excitement and know like at the end, like that was something to look forward to too. But yeah, so like babies were good the whole time. Like they always showed up great on the NSTs and the ultrasounds. Baby B was a lot more active. The bigger baby was just more active in the womb, and he's outside as well. But they were always great, great readings. My labs were always good, and it was a pretty healthy, boring pregnancy. After the anatomy scan, the short cervix scare, they measured it a few more times and it was staying about the same. And so the OBs at the MFM, they were just like, well, it hasn't gotten worse, so we're not concerned anymore. And it's just kind of like one of those things, if I go into labor, I do, but they weren't going to continue to check my cervix. Because for me, I kind of felt like, you know, they were like, you have this short cervix, you need to be on pelvic rest, you have to do all these things. But then they kept checking my cervix length. And I was just like, well, stop touching me if you want me to rest. I didn't understand that, like, they wanted me to be on pelvic rest and like do all these things, but then they kept checking my cervix over and over again. And so I just was kind of like, let's just let it alone, you know? So everything turned out fine. Obviously, I carried them till 36 and 5 days, and I went into labor naturally. That week, I saw my midwife, and I was at the stage where I was like, I'm going to be pregnant forever. And I just knew, I was just like, I'm probably going to be 40 plus weeks and like miserable. And I just was like, there's just no way. And she's like, I have a feeling I'm going to see you soon. So I saw her like on Wednesday, and Sunday I went into labor. And Friday I had my last like ultrasound NST. And then Sunday I woke up like 5 a.m. and I was just like, okay, this feels a little different. I had been having Braxton Hicks since like 20 weeks. So I knew what those felt like. And it was very different from that. It was like period cramps. And I was just like, okay, this is a little different. So my 5-year-old was still sleeping in the bed with us up until that morning. So I rolled out of bed, left him and my husband sleeping. And I'm like, let me just go downstairs and see if this, you know, goes away. So and like my doula had just come over. We had worked on this labor prep. So I was like, let me, you know, sit on the ball. I was on hands and knees on the ball and like just like trying to just like relax through these waves. I hadn't timed them or anything, but they were pretty consistent. Probably, I think once I started timing them, they were coming like every 5 minutes. And so I just kind of continued to go through that. I laid down, I got up, and I just felt like I just couldn't get comfortable and like, it wasn't intensifying, but they were just consistent. And so I went back up to bed and I was like, let me just chill here for a little bit. That's when I started timing them. And that's when I realized they were like 5 minutes apart. So I was like, well, let me maybe text my midwife. And so I texted her around like 8:30. And that's when my husband was getting up too. And so I was like, I think I'm in labor. And he was like, you think? And I was just like, yeah, I think. But side note, I always knew I'd be the person that like would be in denial, because I'm like, it had been 10 years since I had actually been in labor, because like with my second, I didn't go into labor for the C-section. And so I'm just like, I just feel like I was going to be in disbelief or like not really take it seriously. So I told my husband this, because I'm like, I'm not going to be aware of what's happening. If I say I'm kind of in labor, just take that as I'm in labor. And so I just got like these labor prep tinctures. So I like tried those and like immediately threw up. And so I'm like, okay, not doing that anymore. My doula had told me to try to take a shower, but that like intensified things so much. I was getting like contractions like back to back while I was in the shower to where I like had to get out. So I was just like, well, not doing that anymore. And so my husband was getting the kids ready because my 5-year-old had a football game. And I'm still in the back of my head thinking, I'm going to go to this football game. Like I was thinking like, I'm going to go to his game.
Oh my gosh.
We'll come back home. Like I'll just labor through it. It'll be fine. And just for reference, his game was at 10:30 and I had the first baby at 12:06. So I was not going to that game. And so anyway, so like 9:30ish, she's like getting everybody together. And my doula was like, well, give me an hour and I'll come if you're ready for me. And when I talked to my midwife on the phone and she could hear that I think around that time is when like that fetal ejection reflex had started. And I was just like, whoa, like I already felt like pushy. And I was like, this is scary because no one's here. And so when my midwife heard me on the phone, she was like, you should probably tell your doula to head that way. And so I texted her and told her to come. And I think she got here as my husband was like heading out the door to go drop off my kids, because since I was in denial, like I hadn't texted his mom to come over. And so like he had to meet her to drop the kids off, which luckily wasn't far. But I also think it was good because like he needed a minute to like decompress because it had just all happened so fast that last few hours. And I think it was good for him to like call people on his drive back and like get things together and like get his mind right for me. And as he was leaving, the doula was coming in, so that worked. And so, you know, before he left, I had told him to air the pool up, Well, I don't know if he listened in that meeting about the pool because he missed one of the rings. So he only aired up 2 of the rings and he had already started putting water in. And so I didn't realize this till afterwards. So I'm like in the room next to where we were going to birth. There was like a bedroom. And so I was in there on the bed. And the doula was in there like dumping like buckets of water out, trying to get the water out so that she could then air up that last ring. And like, it was just so much happening that I'm glad I didn't know, but I felt bad.
Yeah.
So they were like trying to get that all together. And like, I think my midwife got here around like 10:45 and like the rest of the team. And so since I was having twins, we had a larger team. I had a midwife for myself, a midwife for each baby, and then a midwife that was there as like the note taker for the other midwives. And so then I had my doula there. And then there was another like birth assistant there as well, who kind of became my second doula, which was really great. So they all arrived. I'm going off of like timestamps of pictures, kind of what I remembered, but it was around like 10:45 when everyone kind of got there. And I was like ready to get in the pool at that point. I had still been like pushy that whole time. Like each contraction, I felt like I was pushing. And, you know, my midwife was like, just like relax into it. And I was panicking because I was thinking I was still at the beginning of labor. And so in my head, I was like, how am I going to do this for like 10 more hours or something crazy? Like I was thinking like, this is just starting and I feel so intense already. And I'm like, there's no way. But I was definitely not at the beginning anymore. And so I think, and I know another thing that really bothered me that's kind of a funny note is that I like didn't get the house ready because I was thinking I had a few more weeks. So I was going to have like snacks out for the midwives and like all these things. And so I was so upset that I didn't have the house ready. And my doula kept reminding me like, it is okay. Like your home is lived in and like everybody's fine. And like, I was just like, I didn't wash my dishes. I was like, I didn't even brush my teeth this morning. Like I was so upset. I was like, I didn't put deodorant. Like it was like so many little things that were like really bothering me. And which I am glad they took a picture of it. But at around like 11:30, they finally brought me my toothbrush. I was in the pool. I was in the water. And they were like, please bring this girl a toothbrush because I just kept bringing up the fact that I hadn't brushed my teeth.
Oh my gosh.
And so they brought me a cup to like rinse and spit and my toothbrush and I brushed my teeth and I have a picture of it. It's so cool that I was sitting in the pool brushing my teeth at like 11:30. It was probably transition. Like I was in transition brushing my teeth. So I'm just really glad I had that documented because it's just obviously a funny story to tell, but I just can't believe those, like I'm literally about to push a baby out and I'm worried about my teeth. But anyway, so I brushed my teeth at 11:30 in the water. And then, I don't know, it just felt like it happened really fast, but also slow, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like my body handled it really well. I labored I was kind of just sitting in the tub for a while, and I felt like I needed to change positions, and that's like the last little thing I needed to get her out. And so I switched and got up on my knees and was kind of like leaning over the tub. And I think that's when like the emotion hit me of like what was happening. And I have the timestamp for this one too, because it was a little video, but it was like 12:02. And the birth assistant / doula that was there, she was kind of like rubbing my brows and telling me to just relax and like cry if I needed to cry, because I was kind of like holding those tears in. But she was like, just cry, you need to release that. And like, you know, they talk about that tension and how that transfers to like your pelvis. And so I think like letting that out, like just crying for a second and just like being in that moment. And, you know, she talked me through it, and like literally 4 minutes later, you know, my baby's out. And so I think that moment was like really pivotal for me. And I was really thankful to have her there to kind of like talk me through that moment. And she's like a fellow doula, you know, in a group of doulas that I'm in. And so it was just nice to have her there too. But, you know, once I relaxed, like, you know, she was able to come out and I was able to pull her through and hold her. And I say her, at the time I didn't know, but, you know, I pulled her out and it didn't dawn on me right away. But I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what this baby is. So I looked, and, you know, to be able to be like, oh my God, it's a girl, and like have that moment, it was really, really special and exciting. You know, I'd never been able to say I have a girl. And so that was just beautiful to have that moment and to have it documented and to go back and look at it. I still like rewatch the videos over and over and cry. But like that moment was just so beautiful. And her cord was short, so I wasn't able to like, it was hard to kind of maneuver. You know, I'm taller and in this tub, and this cord was really short. And so the midwives were good about kind of like helping me hold her on my chest. And then I'd flip back around to sit. and just hold her for a little bit. And I didn't have a lot of bleeding, so everything was kind of good there. They were just letting me have that moment with the baby. And then once her cord stopped pulsing, we went ahead and let Dad cut, and he took baby A and held her and was able to have skin to skin while I focused on birthing baby B. And I think they were 18 minutes apart. So, from the time she was born till he was born, it was 18 minutes, and it felt very short. So that was nice. I know that was one of the things when I talked to my midwife about my fears, it was having a long gap in between. I don't know why that was a fear of mine, but for some reason I was worried about having a big gap in between the babies, but it wasn't, and it was great. He came out within like 3 contractions. It was really fast. I don't even feel like I had to push. Like, it was that kind of feel ejection again. In the video, the midwife was like, "Oh, he's here," and it was, or "Baby's here," because she didn't know his sex either. And so, like, he just, came right out, and he had a short cord as well, but I was able to hold him and, announce that it was a boy. So that was really fun. And I don't know, it was just really beautiful. The room was just quiet, and it was 12 in the afternoon, but we had like room darkening curtains, so they closed them. So it was dark in the room. My doula had a little like projection light thing. So there was like lights, like green. I remember it was like greenish lights, like all around the room. And just for like how many people were in the space, it didn't seem hectic, and it was calm and quiet and peaceful. And I thought back on it too, I'm like, no one even touched me during my labor and delivery. Like, the only touching I had was like my doula squeezing my hips, and when they checked baby's heart rates. But even then, it was like they weren't really touching me. It was the wand touching. But I just felt very empowered. Like, I birthed these babies by myself, and especially because a lot of the labor I was by myself. But those few hours I had with people, like, I still just felt very like in control of what was happening. And I just felt like, I just trusted my body to do it, and it did. And I don't know, it was just really beautiful and peaceful. Like, that's just the only way I can describe it. It was very beautiful and very peaceful.
Yeah, that's awesome. That sounds magical. And I was telling you before we started recording that the pictures kind of tell it all too.
Yeah.
So people need to definitely check those out on the show notes. But yeah. Okay, so how was postpartum this time?
Yeah, postpartum was good.
You're still in it.
Yeah, I mean, initially it was good. Like, my mother-in-law lives here, so she had the boys, and they came, and we had that moment with them. So that was really good. And I had attended a home birth as a doula, and I thought it was so cool that, like, you have your baby and then you're just in your own bed. And I just was like, that's so cool. And so like, to do that, and it happened for me, I was like, once I came out of the bedroom, like into the den area where we had the babies, like the pool was gone. It was all clean. It was like nothing happened, which I thought was really cool. But, my best friend had came in town for the birth. She was like an hour late because I didn't tell her right away when I was in labor, but she was there, and she stayed a few days to help us. And then my mother-in-law would come over after work every day for that first week and help. My friend from work set up a meal train, and so we had food galore. My husband's best friend had like been Instacarting food during my labor. I didn't even know.
Aww.
I just like came out of it, and they were like, "We got charcuterie and this and that. Like, we have all kind of snacks upstairs." And I was like, "Oh my gosh,
that's awesome!"
Our neighbors behind us have twin girls, and so like she sent over like a huge basket of snacks. We just had a lot of people give us the food. We were maxed out. We between like funds, people were sending us money for food or just sending us meals. Like, it was great. Like, that was something we didn't have to think about, which was awesome. For me, I thought honestly the hardest part was navigating the older kids, like making sure they had what they needed and they were taken care of. So that was probably harder for me. Physically, I felt great. I didn't have any tears. I really didn't have any pain. I had bought these like pad sickle things from Freedom Mom, and I used one, and I was like, I don't need these because I don't have any pain.
Nice.
Which is unheard of. Like, I don't feel like I had twin babies. Like, I had no ailments physically. It was mostly just like the exhaustion, mentally exhausted and stuff, which I'm just like, the universe, God, whatever, like they knew I needed physically to be okay. Because mentally and everything else, I was going to be exhausted trying to care for these babies. And so I'm thankful for that part of it. Like, towards like week 2 or 3, I kind of would feel a little aches and pains, and I had to remind myself, like, you did have 2 babies. Like, even if you don't feel that, you did do it, and you're not going to feel normal 100%. But I'm very thankful for our, the people around around us. And I'm hopeful that we'll get back to this village way of living because, women need that. And I've had a village around me having these twins, and it's been amazing. Between my mom coming in town or my mother-in-law coming over a lot and helping out, it's just been really good. And just navigating that. Breastfeeding was probably the hardest part of it all. My baby girl was smaller. She was 5 pounds, and he was 6 pounds, 2 ounces. And so just her mouth was very small. She just wasn't able to latch. And they were more concerned with her gaining weight. And so we just went ahead and did bottles. We started with syringe, and then we went to bottles. And I was just pumping and feeding bottles for both of them because he really wasn't latching either. He would just get really upset to latch. It was just like he didn't have the patience for it, basically. And then once they got on bottles, they really didn't have the patience because they were used to that bottle flow. And so that was a big adjustment for me because I had never bottle fed newborns. But I went to La Leche League meetings, and I did all the work, and I was able to, around 7 weeks, start nursing Avery, the boy, and Jaylee, our girl. She started nursing a week ago. So around 12 weeks. So that has been really exciting for me to push through that and be able to nurse them. While it's now that I can nurse, I don't really enjoy tandem feeding. I'm just I wanted to do this all this time, and I don't really like doing this. It's much easier to feed one baby at a time.
Yeah.
So just that's probably the biggest thing with twins for me is navigating feeding. And, ultimately I do not like pumping at all. And so the most breast milk I can give them, I'm going to do, but I'm hoping to keep them at the breast as much as possible. But I do give a bottle every now and then because it's just easier. There's 2 of them, and sometimes I just can't nurse them both. And so I'm giving myself grace in that sense. And I think, being a mom for 10 years now, I've really learned the art of giving yourself grace because, it's not going to be perfect, but at the end of the day, they're healthy and they're still getting breast milk no matter how they're getting it. And so just being okay with that has been a big lesson for me. But ultimately, I think I've been lucky to have the support I've had, and things have gone really well postpartum.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing that experience. It's always fun to hear a twin story because I do feel like there's so many things that are just different naturally. And it's always interesting to hear how people navigate it differently. So I'm so glad that postpartum has been going well overall for you, though.
Yes, for sure.
Awesome. Well, what resources do you want to share?
Yeah,
Obviously, the Birth Hour is great.
Thank you.
I have been listening for 10 years now, I think. And so...
Wow.
And I tell people, when I'm pregnant, I obviously listen more. But it's always one you can't go wrong going to and listening to. So I love the Birth Hour. Evidence-Based Birth, I really love, too. The podcast, the website, just to look at their articles. Their one-page articles are really great just to, get a snapshot of, some information you need. The book, The Birth Partner, is amazing. As a doula and as a mom, I think it's just something that's a really great resource. And then a couple of Instagram accounts outside of evidence-based birth. I follow the midwife Angelina. Birthing Instincts is great, just especially with twins. And so, those are some ones that I really love. Great.
Well, we'll link to those. And then where's the best place for people to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram, _ Carolyn Jinks. And I share a lot of my motherhood, everyday life. And then I sprinkle in some of my doula stuff as well, to educate with that. And I'm also on TikTok, not as much. I am older millennial. So I don't know all the TikTok things, but I know it's a space to connect to people. So I'm also on TikTok as _ Carolyn Jinks as well. Same thing, sharing my everyday life with twins, being a stay-at-home mom. I think that's been fun to kind of document. So
yeah, great. All right. We'll link to those as well. And thank you so much for taking the time to share today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much again to Carolyn for sharing her birth stories with us. If you want more information from today's episode, head over to thebirthhour.com and just search for Carolyn's name in the search bar to find her show notes page. I recommend it just for seeing the picture from her home birth. I'll put it on Instagram as well. And I will include the coupon codes for both Cozy Earth and Air Doctor on the show notes as well as in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode. Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.